Can we just touch on a couple of this week's talking points? First of all, Obviously you're not going to be able to play in front of a crowd next week. How much of a blow has that been for you and the playing squad?
Yeah, us and the playing squad, probably the nation as a whole, James, and they probably felt a whole lot of sort of deflation and frustration around the events of the last sort of 24, 48 hours. But obviously we have to, we have to respect the medical advice and opinion, and touch wood, we get to a different place pretty quickly. But it's pretty disappointing, mate, as you think that you're making headway and the chances of getting crowds back in and starting to resume a normal life. But obviously it's a bit of a setback for everyone.
The other end of the scale, if you beat Wigan in the semi-finals, you will be playing at Wembley. Has that been a boost for the side and for all the sides, I guess, still involved?
Oh, I think being in a semi-final itself is very exciting. Obviously, we've got a couple of games before that too, which we've got to negotiate. Obviously, we're in the top four at the moment, and that's where we're aiming to try and stay. So our performance in those two games is important to get into the semi-final in the right form, the right frame of mind, and of course, we've got a number of individuals coming back, so there's a number of spots to be played for too. So we're not looking too far ahead, James. It's a big game with a lot of stake, and one that, when you're at a club like this, you need to be in those games, and you want to be in those games, and they're very exciting, and it puts a great deal of probably excitement is the word that I'm looking for, really, great deal of excitement into what's in front of us. But one step at a time before we get to that, and hopefully we can get into that game in good form, in a really good frame of mind and headspace.
What about selection this week then? How different could the side look on Thursday?
Not too different. Obviously, we're very mindful that we've got a game early next week too, which is 3 days before a semi-final. So our team won't look too different. How we use the bench may well be different. We decided last week take Callum McLennan as a backup for Cruz Leeming, and we took Luke really for his versatility, and the fact that we've got Liam Sutcliffe, who's very, very versatile in the backs and forwards, and Ash Hanley and Richie Myler that can dot about. We're comfortable taking a back with us. We managed our middle rotation, okay. But we'll decide, mate. Cuthbo will be back in contention from missing out late last week, and we'll just decide, mate. There's about throw Jared O'Connor in with 6 blokes at the moment for 4 bench spots. So we'll just decide when we have a good look at their team, we have a look at the weather conditions, and see how we're travelling internally before we make the final call on a couple of spots on the bench.
So there's a possibility that Jared could make his debut this week?
We'll definitely make it in the next couple of weeks, mate. I can guarantee you that. And that's all we're giving away at this point.
What do you think you'll get from Hull KR?
Well, I think the fact that Tony's going to change his team, looking at the 21 that they've announced, it'll give him a renewed energy. People are obviously getting an opportunity to play for spots, which generally would give you an upspurt. Obviously, they'll want to right some wrongs from last week and learn, like we all do, learn week by week, what you need to improve and what you need to fix up. But it's more the changing makeup of the team and their energy, James. I would anticipate a team that are going to look to try and play the same style. I don't think, after one sort of poor defeat, they're going to look to change everything. I think it'll be a case of, almost trying to ramp that up. So, the mindset for us is to get ourselves ready to start again and ready to put the same concentration and commitment into that defensive effort as we did, for the bulk of the game last week. They're always a tricky team to play, even the way that the tries come, probably from threats that we identified, the 9s running and the unexpected kick plays. So that was a good warning shot for us, mate, that, we to be a little bit more alert and cleaner in a couple of those areas too.
I should have asked earlier as well, the COVID status, has anything changed at all?
It changes so much, James, that it's difficult for me to regale every single individual circumstance. But touch wood, all being well, the 4 players could be in contention for the game next week. Not certain yet. but they could all be in contention for the Catalan game, albeit with probably little preparation into that. Brad Dwyer is obviously our main concern because he contracted COVID and he had a couple of really rough days. So we need to see how he pulls through. His return to play protocols, I think, start this weekend. But you know, he has had the virus, so we need to see how he comes back in terms of any adverse effect that may have caused him. You know, really frustrating for Connie and Bodine to be put away. You know, as yet, their incubation period, they've shown no symptoms, and I'm guessing unlikely. I don't think too many that have been stood down off track and trace have actually developed symptoms. So touch wood, that becomes the case for us in this instance, and you know, they wouldn't get too much prep in. Same with Corey Hall in that they wouldn't get too much prep into the Catalan game in terms of training. So we'll assess their status in the 48 hours before that game.
And just finally from me, Rich, Jack Walker and Cam Smith, are they weeks away? A couple of weeks?
No. Cam Smith gets tested on his jaw, so he goes for a scan and X-rays and see the specialist on Thursday afternoon. If that's all healed and mended, he will be available to play in that game next week. Again, if he's still going through the healing process and he's still knitting together, then we can't risk him. But he's been training with us, mate. He's been obviously not doing contact, but he feels fine. You know, he's got his weight back up a little bit. He certainly doesn't look like he's missed a beat fitness-wise. So fingers crossed if we get some good news on that, you know, we can look to Cam, Connie, Bodine, Brad Dwyer to play some part in that Catalan game with a bit of luck.
And Jack?
Sorry, Jack. Yeah, touch and go. You know, obviously with a semi-final coming up, Jack's got his eyes on that and pushing towards making himself available. I think given such a long injury and the fact he's had a setback with it, I think it's fair to say we would need to see Jack play to consider him in contention for the semi-final game. Having said that, there's a lot of situations arising at the moment, so we wouldn't rule anything out or rule anything in, James. But yeah, he'll be a long shot, mate. It's probably highly unlikely we'd risk him. He's pushing for it, but it's highly unlikely we would risk him again, Catalan, coming off such a major injury, mate.